Well, folks, there's a brand new poll out, and Democrats are freaking out. We will bring you all of that momentarily. First, the Daily Wire's first ever theatrical release, Am I Racist? It hits theaters nationwide this Friday. Theaters are selling out across the country. More screens are being added daily. Get your tickets and showtimes right now at miracist.com. Go do that right now. Alrighty, so brand new poll out, New York Times poll, huge sample size, and it shows Donald Trump now with a 1-point lead over Kamala Harris nationally, 48-47. This is a disaster area poll for Kamala Harris. I've been saying for a long time that she had hit her high water mark, that there was only receding to the mean from there, that she had had weeks and weeks and weeks of no serious questions asked of her. And eventually the vibes would run out. But, you know, I'm in this business for a long time. And even I doubt myself. I wonder whether maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she could just run on fumes all the way through the election. It turns out the American people are like, not quite so fast there. Kamala, you're going to have to actually explicate who you are and what you believe in order for us to make you president of the United States. So this brand new New York Times Siena College poll, again, shows Donald Trump up 48-47. That is among likely voters. If you are looking at all voters, registered voters, which may be more reflective because it's kind of hard to tell who is a likely voter and who is a not likely voter in the Trump-Harris election, because Trump brings in a lot of low propensity voters. If you look at that number, Trump is actually up 2. He's up 46-44. Terrible numbers for Kamala Harris. Disastrous numbers for Kamala Harris. And when you look at the crosstabs, it gets even worse for Kamala Harris. If you look at the approval ratings, for example, for Joe Biden, only 37% of Americans strongly or somewhat approve of Joe Biden's performance, and that is being attached to Kamala Harris. If you look at the favorability ratings for Donald Trump, by contrast, 46% of Americans have a very favorable or somewhat favorable rating of President Trump. 52% say somewhat unfavorable or very unfavorable. If you look at Kamala Harris, her very or somewhat favorable rating is 45%, lower than that of President Trump, and 50 have a somewhat unfavorable or very unfavorable rating of Kamala Harris. Meanwhile, as to the question of, do you feel like you still need to learn more about Donald Trump, or do you pretty much know what you need to know about him? 87% of the voters say they already know what they need to know about Trump. Only 12% say they want to learn more. Those 12% apparently have been hiding in a cave for the last 10 years or something. Kamala Harris, it's a different story. 67% say they already know what they need to know about Kamala Harris. 31% say they feel like they need to learn more about Kamala Harris. So these numbers are bad for her right now. Wait until 1/3 of the American population hears all the rest of the stuff about Kamala Harris. How radical she is, how empty she is. All the arguments that we made on Friday about what Donald Trump needs to do in the debate. Wait until all of the airwaves are hit with hundreds of millions of dollars in ads saying all of that she is shallow, that she is radical, that she is empty, that she vacillates on her positions, that she is Machiavellian, that she's dishonest. Wait until they hear all of that. Again, she may have hit a high water mark, which is why the debate tomorrow night is going to mean nearly everything, not as much for Trump, but for Kamala Harris. As far as what people think they need to know about Kamala Harris, 63% of that 31% say they need to know more about her policies and plans. They don't know anything about her policies and plans, which is a problem for her because she's trying to avoid talking about all of that. Meanwhile, as to the poll question in this poll, whether they believe Kamala Harris represents change or more of the same, 56% say more of the same, which is true. The American public, hitting it on the mark right there, 56% say she is more of the same. Well, in an era in which Americans don't like what they are seeing right now, more of the same is a very, very bad pitch. 56% saying more of the same of Kamala Harris. That is not a great number. Meanwhile, do you think Donald Trump represents change or more of the same? 61% say change. So if this is a change election, Donald Trump is ahead. All he has to do is not be nuts from here on out to the election. As far as the number one issue, if you had to just pick one, 21% say the economy, 14% say abortion. So Trump leads on the economy. He trails on abortion, although he has taken some of those points off the table by taking a very milquetoast position on abortion. He's not going to get involved at the national level. He has signaled he doesn't like, for example, heartbeat bills, even at the state level. The number 3 issue is immigration. The number 4 issue is inflation and cost of living. So 3 of the top 4 issues trend toward President Trump. Again, bad numbers for Kamala Harris. Which candidate do you think would do a better job of handling the issue you think is most important? 50% say Trump, only 43% say Harris. Only 43% say Harris. Trump leads by 16% on the economy. He leads by 11% on immigration. And again, this is before people know Kamala Harris's actual immigration position. She's been portraying herself as a border hawk, and she's still losing by 11 on the issue and 16 on the economy. She leads on abortion by 17 points. She leads on democracy, however, by only 6 points. And right now, 51% of Americans say the economy is poor. 28% say only fair. A grand total of 21% say excellent or good, and they all work for the New York Times. Well, folks, apparently 20% of Americans say that the economy is doing just fine. Those people are lying to themselves, but you shouldn't lie to yourself. The fact is you need to save money, which is why you should cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. How do you do that? Well, you switch on over to Pure Talk. Most big cell phone providers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. But here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you will ever need. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you can choose how much data you actually want and you can save. Listen to this. For just $35 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data, plus mobile hotspot on America's most dependable 5G network. Do you know what you can do with that much data? You can browse the internet for 500 hours. You can stream 3,000 songs. You can watch 30 hours of video. That's all if you're not on Wi-Fi. Here's the best part. When you switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk on a qualifying plan, you'll get 1 year free of Daily Wire Plus Insider. That's access to the full library of DW Plus movies, series, and documentaries, including Lady Ballers, What is a Woman, Mr. Bertram, and Run, Hide, Fight. Plus, uncensored, ad-free daily shows. 1 year free of our kids' platform, BentKey, and your very own free Leftist Tears Tumblr. It's a great deal. The only way you can do all of that, head on over to puretalk.com/Shapiro or call and mention my name. Stop overpaying for your cell phone plan. Go to puretalk.com/Shapiro today. Switch to a qualifying plan. Get 1 year free of Daily Wire Plus Insider. As far as the Democratic pitch, and we're examining this New York Times Siena poll, which is a disaster for Democrats and a disaster for Kamala Harris, and the vibes have run out. The joy has run out. It is time for her to actually get down to issues, and that's a real problem for her. How many people have actually heard about Project 2025? 24% say a lot, 31% say some, and everybody else says don't care. Again, that is not going to be the deciding issue in this election, especially because Project 2025 has basically fallen apart. The head of Project 2025 stepped away from Heritage Foundation, and Trump himself has dissociated from Project 2025 by name. When it comes to issues like, for example, increasing domestic production of fossil fuels like oil and gas, 65% of Americans support. That's a big Donald Trump win. As far as the question, look at this one. A federal law establishing price controls on food and groceries. This was supposedly Kamala Harris's proposal to bring grocery prices down. It's economically illiterate at every single level. It's a lie. She knows it's illiterate. She's pushing it anyway. 51% oppose. And this is a disaster area poll for her. It's actually kind of incredible how bad this poll is for Kamala Harris before the debate. Some interesting other questions. Has Donald Trump ever said anything you found offensive? 40% said yes recently. 28% said yes, but not recently. No, 30%. That yes, but not recently category is fascinating. Because what that means is, yeah, I remember when he said bad old stuff, but, I really don't care. Because the truth is that if you want to look for reasons to be offended by President Trump, you can find them nearly every day. But if you've just decided it's baked into the cake, then the easy answer there is, sure, he says stuff that's offended me, but not recently, and I don't really care very much. He's also perceived as more moderate. I've been saying this for months. Donald Trump is the moderate candidate in this election. This is true when Biden is running. This is true when Harris is running. Donald Trump has run toward the center of the political aisle. He has run there. On abortion, he has run there. On economics, he has run there. On security, he has run there. It's Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. They ran way to the left on everything from transing the kids and equity to tax policy, foreign policy, oil and gas. They have run away from moderation. They abandoned the middle in the weird opinion that they can somehow duplicate Barack Obama's 2012 run. I've said before, the great unifying field theory of American politics is that everybody has been trying in the Democratic Party to duplicate Barack Obama's 2012 coalition, which was heavy minority turnout and white liberal ladies, and that was going to spur them to victory. And Democrats keep trying it, and it doesn't work all that often. Trying that again is a giant fail. So, do you think Donald Trump is too conservative, not conservative enough, or not too far either way? 50% say not too far either way. 11% say not conservative enough. That's 61% of the American public that says about Donald Trump that either he is moderate or he's not conservative enough, which puts them closer to his aisle. As far as whether she is too liberal or progressive, 44% say she is too liberal or progressive, compared to only 32% who say that Donald Trump is too conservative. 42% say not too far either way. Again, these are bad numbers for her. They show that the American public believe that she is too far to the left. In fact, Donald Trump is 12 points better than she is on the too conservative versus too liberal scale. It's pretty amazing. So again, every number here looks worse and worse for the Democratic Party and for Kamala Harris. Now, they did do some state level polling, and it basically shows that everything is sort of inside margin of error. It shows that every single major swing state is within 1 or 2 points. But if Donald Trump wins the popular vote, the chances that he actually loses the swing states very, very low. People in the Democratic Party are, of course, freaking out. You've seen some new adopters of the Democratic Party like Bill Kristol, who has shifted all the way from George W. Bush supporter to Kamala Harris supporter, lamenting this poll, crying about it, distressing, depressing, alarming. After everything, after January 6th, after clear evidence the second term would be far more authoritarian than the first, after the ever-increasing radicalization of MAGA world, Trump now has more support than he had in 2016 or 2020. Okay, now, you know why that is. You know why that is. I can tell you why that is. Because I'm one of the people who didn't vote for him in 2016. I didn't vote for either candidate in 2016. I said they all suck. And then in 2020, I voted for Trump because the Democratic Party lost its ever-loving mind even more than they had in 2016. And in 2024, I'm a donor to President Trump and I'm campaigning with Senate candidates. That's how strongly I believe the Democratic Party cannot be in control of power. You want to know why Trump's numbers are up? It's because Democratic Party numbers are down. It's because they went too far to the left. They abandoned the middle. It's that simple. Aaron Rupar, who's a stenographer for the Biden administration, he said whether he ultimately gets 48 or 45% of the vote, Trump having this level of support is evidence of a profoundly sick society. So I have a question for Aaron Rupar and company. Do you ever look in the mirror? Ever at any point? And do you think to yourself, how did we get here? Seriously, how did we get here? What is it that drove Americans to Donald Trump? Perhaps the answer is that you guys decided that you were going to demonize Mitt Romney, the most milquetoast presidential candidate in American history, as a puppy murderer, as a person who gave people cancer, as a person who sought to destroy companies and forcibly cut the hair of gay kids or something back in the 1950s. And then you won on that basis. And then you got Trump. That's how you got Trump. And then you decided not to moderate, not to try to understand the people you scorned. You decided to spit on those people. That's how you got Trump. And that's how you're going to get more Trump right now. Well, folks, the gigantic Democratic misread of the American public is precisely how Trump happened. But when it comes to your company, you cannot afford to misread your employee base. Okay, the fact is that if you fall behind in finding the best employees, you are failing. And you don't have to fail because you have ZipRecruiter. We live in a time where we expect things to happen fast, right? The internet procures any answer to any question. You can touch an app, a car will pick you up within minutes. You can order anything, have it delivered the very next day. Here's a question. Of the things that are still slow in your life, what else do you wish could happen faster? Like exercise and fitness, that would be great, right? But how about getting better employees? That is what you need, okay? You need to build your business and hire the best employees fast. With ZipRecruiter, the hiring part is really, really fast. See for yourself, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter will get a quality candidate within day 1. Right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. It's very difficult to find great employees if you're just trying it sort of the typical way, right? You got the classifieds, you got the various job boards. The fact is they are not efficient. You know what's efficient? You know what saves you time and money and finds you the best employees fast? ZipRecruiter. Try it for free. ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. That's ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. Now, there are a lot of indicators that Kamala Harris is in some very, very serious trouble. According to The Hill, new polls show Vice President Harris faces a major challenge in winning over male voters and is losing men by a bigger margin than she is winning women in key states like Pennsylvania, Nevada, and North Carolina. Former President Trump's problems with female voters are well known, but new polls show Harris has just as big a problem with male voters in some states. Now, you can see why. Because Kamala Harris has made the one issue on which she is absolutely solid abortion, and she keeps running over and over and over as historic female vice president. And then she surrounds herself with some of the most submissive males in American politics. Doug Emhoff and Tim Walz are both playing dumb sitcom dads, following her around and acting like clowns. It is incredibly off-putting to dudes. That campaign is significantly more off-putting to dudes than even Joe Biden's campaign. Joe Biden's campaign was bad. Kamala Harris's campaign is about how she is joy, she is wonder, and how every dude inside her orbit has to act like a complete effing clown. That is what that campaign is about. Hilariously enough, the Democratic Party can't get over it. One source said, misogyny is a hell of a drug. It was glossed over when people said everyone hated Hillary Clinton. Maybe they hated Hillary Clinton because she's a bad politician. Maybe they hate Kamala Harris because she's a bad politician. But it's not only that. It's not only that. It's that the Democratic Party has decided that traditional manhood is bad. The man who goes out and earns for his family and protects his children and gets married and cares for his community is now considered a borderline toxic male. Government is supposed to be your dad. Government is supposed to be your husband. Government is supposed to fill in all the gaps left by the traditional protective male. Because you see, if you believe in traditional male roles, that might mean that there is such a thing as a traditional female role and that these two roles are complementary. You know, as has been true in virtually every culture throughout human history. But the Democratic Party has run completely against that. They don't believe in the complementarity of the sexes. They don't believe that men and women belong together or that men need women and women need men. They don't believe any of that. So the result is men looking at the Democratic Party and saying, you don't want us here. This is, I think, the most hilarious quote from this piece over at the Hill. Ross K. Baker, professor of political science at Rutgers University, said, quote, about Tim Walz, right, the Minnesota governor, the goofball former assistant football coach who started like the LGBT support club at his high school and runs around waving his arms about like a moron and then saying absolutely ridiculous things on politics. That weirdo. Baker says, quote, this is about the Kamala Harris campaign, quote, they saw him as a man's man. I think the idea was that he is somebody who could connect with these very alienated male voters who feel that the trend of national policy in recent years has been very much tilted in favor of women. If you think of Tim Walz as a man's man, if you look at Tim Walz and what you see is just a burly, rough and tumble dude, let me recommend that you get your head examined. Only a Democratic Party so deep with its head in its own colon would think that Tim Walz represents like traditional American manhood. I know that that's what his resume says, right? Nothing but respect for his National Guard service, except for the part where he sort of fibbed about what he did and didn't do. That's a great thing. I've said that his relationship with his son in particular seems very nice. Also, his entire campaign has been about bowing and scraping before Kamala Harris. If your pitch to men is Tim Walz, good luck with that. Not a lot of dudes are looking at Tim Walz and going, yeah, that's the kind of man I want to be. That's the party that represents men. Beyond that, on the issues, Democrats got a problem. Inflation has really taken out of the American people. The Democrats keep looking at the economy and they say, well, the stock market is at all-time highs. And everybody else goes, you embedded 40-year highs in inflation in the economy. And no matter what you do in the last couple months of this election campaign, it is not going to bring down the embedded price increase you have created over the course of the last 3.5 years. You increased grocery bills 20, 25, 30%. You didn't increase wages to keep up. And now you expect us to all be grateful that the 401ks are going up based on inflationary tactics by the Federal Reserve? According to the Washington Post, areas with greater support for Trump in 2020 have faced higher inflation since then among the 21 metropolitan areas. The trend highlights a persistent challenge for Democratic candidates this fall. The most drastic price growth was seen in metros along the Sun Belt. That would be precisely the area where Kamala Harris needs to win. The places that have seen the highest inflation in terms of cities include places like Tampa, Miami, right, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, Atlanta, Georgia, Detroit, Michigan. Right? These are places with high levels of inflation. And then you wonder why Donald Trump is doing much better than expected on all of this. Even Politico is acknowledging that Harris's momentum has stalled, which is a problem for her. Nate Silver says basically what's happening here is that Kamala Harris has been exposed as the same candidate she was in 2019, 2020. That Kamala Harris is not, in fact, some sort of giant vibes-filled mystery, that actually the public perceives her the same way they perceived her back in 2019, 2020. He has an entire piece at his Silver Bulletin called "The Mistakes of 2019 Could Cost Harris the Election." He points out, there are a few moments from presidential debates I'll never forget. Joe Biden's implosion in June, Marco Rubio's implosion in 2016, Michael Bloomberg's implosion in 2020. But an underrated, memorable moment came from the first major Democratic primary debates in 2019. Asked for a show of hands on whether their health care plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants, every Democrat on stage, including, and more sheepishly than the others, Biden, raised their hands. It seemed like one of those moments when Twitter had come to life. At the time, 60% of Americans opposed this policy, even though 2/3 of Democrats supported it. This was a moment when it became clear that the Democratic Party had basically broken with the American consensus. Well, with these kind of bad poll numbers, the Democratic Party needs to wake up and smell the coffee. Black Rifle coffee. See, here's the thing. Black Rifle coffee helps you wake up each morning feeling dialed in, ready to make the most of your day. I've basically become dependent on it at this point. I got 4 kids. I'm up at all hours of the night. Got a lot of work going on. It's the election cycle. I need my Black Rifle coffee. Now is your chance to get 20% off your purchase with code DailyWire at blackriflecoffee.com. Black Rifle Coffee's explosive coffees are roasted right here in the United States by a veteran-led team of expert roasters who take pride in serving coffee and culture to people who love the country. Every purchase you make helps them further their mission to support veteran and first responder causes. Everything from getting funding and equipment to first responders to helping veterans get medical care. Black Rifle Coffee has a huge selection of dark roasts, light roasts, everything in between. Take the coffee quiz on their website, get matched with a blend perfectly tailored to your specific taste. Again, a portion of every purchase you make with Black Rifle Coffee goes toward supporting veteran and first responder causes. Your money goes a long way toward giving back to those who serve the country. Head on over to blackriflecoffee.com right now. Use code DailyWire for 20% off America's coffee. That's blackriflecoffee.com, code DailyWire. Again, blackriflecoffee.com. Use code DailyWire for 20% off America's coffee. That's blackriflecoffee.com, code DailyWire. As Nate Silver points out, the New York Times Siena poll contained a pair of questions on whether voters think Harris is too liberal or progressive and whether Trump is too conservative. And again, Harris is doing very poorly on that question. He says, I'm not a messaging and tactics guy. I'm not sure how Harris is supposed to spin her way out of this perception. Her convention speech was aggressively centrist and aimed at male voters. But there's a track record here of progressive policy advocacy on the 2019 campaign trail and in her voting record in the Senate. There's room for her numbers to move, but they could move in either direction because, again, it will be exposed that she is not, in fact, moderate. And you can see that the Democratic Party itself is torn on how to address the problem of Kamala Harris's policies. So, for example, Bernie Sanders on national TV this weekend, and he is asked about her jettisoning half of her 2019-2020 positions. And he's like, she's lying. He's like, don't worry, she's lying.
She has previously supported Medicare for all. Now she does not. She's previously supported a ban on fracking. Now she does not. These, Senator, are ideas that you have campaigned on. Do you think that she is abandoning her progressive ideals?
No, I don't think she's abandoning her ideals. I think she's trying to be pragmatic and doing what she thinks is right in order to win the election.
He's just saying the quiet part out loud. I don't think that she's abandoned anything she's doing. I just think she's lying. I think she's lying in order to win the election. I believe Bernie Sanders. I agree with him. She is lying in order to win the election. You know who else is saying that? Senator Raphael Warnock from Georgia. Again, Raphael Warnock should not be a senator from the state of Georgia. The only reason that he and John Ossoff are senators from the state of Georgia is because after election 2020, President Trump idiotically decided to tell Georgia voters not to vote in the next round of elections. And so you ended up with 2 Democratic senators in the same state where Brian Kemp blew away Stacey Abrams in the gubernatorial race. That makes a difference, by the way, because those 2 senators were the deciding factor in literally trillions of dollars in spending under Joe Biden. In any case, Raphael Warnock, senator from Georgia, and here he was saying that Kamala Harris should push as president mandatory gun confiscation. Now remember, she's run away from that. In 2019, 2020, she endorsed mandatory gun buybacks. That is to say, gun seizures. And then she walked it back via her campaign. She's never said anything, but her campaign is, she doesn't agree with that anymore. So Raphael Warnock is pushed on that by Kristen Welker over at NBC News. And she says, like, so if you pass that bill, would she veto it? Which is the real question. And he's like, nope, she wouldn't veto it. She would absolutely be in favor of mandatory gun buybacks and should be.
Should she also be, in your opinion, supporting a mandatory gun buyback program?
Listen, we're not going to be able to get where we need to go without action in Congress.
Senator, just yes or no, though, should she support the mandatory buyback program? Just a yes or no.
Listen, look, as a pastor, I've done buyback programs. You can pick this issue or that issue. But I think that, again, there's not one single thing that will make all of this go away.
Okay, so that is him endorsing mandatory gun seizures under a Kamala Harris presidency. So which do you believe? Do you believe those people who say, underneath, she's still the same radical as she always was, or do you believe new convert Liz Cheney? So Liz Cheney back in 2020 said, Kamala Harris is wildly left-wing, super left-wing on every single issue. Then, of course, after the 2020 election, Liz Cheney not only turned on Trump, she turned on the entire Republican Party and has now decided to endorse Kamala Harris. So now she's out there pretending that Ronald Reagan would vote for Kamala Harris. Yeah, sure. Yeah, nailed it. If you believe this, it's because you want to believe it. This is true foolishness.
Who would Ronald Reagan be supporting in this race? What do you think?
There is absolutely no chance that Ronald Reagan would be supporting Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't stand for any of the things that Ronald Reagan did. And it's another place where I would urge my Republican colleagues, both in the Congress but across the country, to really look at Donald Trump's policies, to really look at the danger that he presents, to look at what he was willing to do to stay in power. It's a firm rejection, not just of traditional Republican policies, but of the constitutional order on which this country depends.
Okay, give me a break. And then she's asked an obvious question. Okay, well then why did you speak badly about her in 2020? She's changed on all the issues. Here we go. Liz Cheney.
Would you still have been able to endorse Kamala Harris if it was the Kamala Harris of 2019 and 2020?
Look, I think that she has changed in a number of very important ways on issues that matter. And I would encourage independents to look at where she is on these policy issues today. I would encourage independents to compare where she is today with where Donald Trump is on these issues. And so I think from a policy perspective, it is very important to recognize the change, to recognize that she understands that this election is going to require a coalition of people from across the political spectrum supporting her.
Who believes that? Kamala Harris has changed on pretty much all of the issues, and everyone can see it, which is why she's been dropping like a stone in the betting markets. Well, you can bet on the election if you so choose, because betting with BetOnline is easy and it's fun. Beyond traditional sports, BetOnline gives you the option to bet on political events like the outcome of the presidential election, or if you're a diehard sports fan, BetOnline makes sports betting more accessible and convenient than ever before. Producer Jess, diehard Dallas Cowboys fan, yesterday they had a nice win against the Cleveland Browns. Shocker, because they're the Browns, But let's just say it. Lunch is on Jess today. With just a few clicks, you can place bets on your favorite teams or events from the comfort of your own home. BetOnline prides themselves on their higher-than-average betting limits of up to $25,000, and you can increase your wagering amounts by contacting their player services desk by phone or email. So, while you're watching your favorite team or the news on upcoming elections, why not spice things up with a friendly wager at BetOnline? Head on over to betonline.ag to place your bets today. Use promo code BEN for a 50% sign-up bonus of up to $250. That's betonline.ag. Use promo code BEN. BetOnline. The options are endless. So Kamala Harris has now put out an issues page as of like Monday morning. So it only took her like 6 weeks to put out an issues page. That basically says nothing. It's a bunch of jargon. It's a bunch of empty promises. There's nothing very specific on the issues page, but they're all going to pretend that there are serious policy positions on that page. It doesn't matter. You know what she would do. She said it in 2019, 2020, and then she did it under Joe Biden. So you can either believe your eyes or you can believe the lies they are telling you now, which presumably is why they keep on pushing the vibes. They got to push the vibes. They got nothing else. If it goes to the issues, they got a massive problem. So for example, the Associated Press, which should be doing, actual reporting on her positions, all the problems with them. The Associated Press put out a tweet, quote, Harris turns to her favorite foods in effort to show a more private side and connect with voters. Her favorite, and just a picture of her holding Doritos. Wow, she's just like celebrities. They're just like you. She also likes Doritos and day drinking. That is what Kamala Harris, she's showing you her more private side by eating Doritos. Good job, AP. That is some top-notch journalisming, high-level journalisming. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are going around giving people hugs. So Kamala Harris, she was hugging it out with a sobbing supporter in Pennsylvania. And this is the really important thing, is that she gives Kamala hugs. Oh my God. Wow. Doesn't matter that her policies are far to the left of anything the Democratic Party has ever run, including George McGovern. She gives hugs to people. Wow.
sure you know.
Oh, it's going to be good. We're going to be good. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. We are all in this together.
Yes, we are.
We're going to be fine.
We are.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Thank you so much.
Huh?
Thank you so
Did you get some spices?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, it's all good.
Oh,
it's all
so many
good.
hugs.
We're standing strong, right? We love our country.
Absolutely.
Right?
Everybody's
Yeah.
crying together.
That's right.
Hugs, hugs. I don't want a president who gives hugs. I want a president who kicks ass. That's what I want. I want a president who kicks ass on behalf of the American people, who takes on America's enemies and stops them. I want a president who stops China and Iran and Russia and North Korea in their tracks. I want a president of the United States who doesn't, for example, sacrifice the bodies of American soldiers and then abandon their families. That would be great. I would love an American president who actually knows enough about business not to destroy major businesses in the United States through asinine tax and regulatory proposals. I would love that. I would love a president of the United States who doesn't promise mass amnesty. That would be awesome. I don't need a president who hugs. I've got parents for that. I've got kids for that. It's an absurdity. If you're the kind of person who requires hugs from your presidential candidate, let me request that you quickly go get a psychological examination. Seriously. But this is what it's all about. It's about the hugs. Here's Doug Emhoff. Remember we were talking before about how like Doug Emhoff and Tim Walz, this was their male outreach program. Doug Emhoff and Tim Walz, who are Phil Dunphy from Modern Family, except more oafish, dumber, and more annoying. Here's Doug Emhoff talking about how he loves hugging Tim Walz. They love hugging, which is a real masculine, like that's all the bros out there. That's what we all talk about, how we love hugging. It's like our thing. Great male outreach there, my dude. Here we go.
We get up there and we just do this big bro bear hug. And I cannot tell you how many texts I got from my actual friends and actual family members like, you never hugged me like that. What's going on? You literally just met this guy.
Did you hit him on the back? Did you hit him on the back to preserve your heteronormativity? Did you give him the back pat?
No, if you see the video, we just did this full on. And I think, he was like this, I was like this, and then it was just this bro hug.
Awkward hug discussions. That's exactly what the dudes are looking for. Nailed it. Can't imagine why there's a massive gender gap in this particular election. Okay, well, as we know, the big debate is coming up tomorrow night. Right now, it is incumbent on Kamala Harris to actually show well, and it's incumbent on Donald Trump not to blow it and to expose her, right? Those are the things. So that big debate is happening tomorrow night. We are doing a backstage with a live simulcast of the debate and reactions from the most trusted voices in conservative media. Me, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, Jeremy Boring will be there for full coverage and analysis. Watch live over at Daily Wire Plus. So both sides are now setting expectations with regard to the debate. The Trump campaign is suggesting that they expect that Kamala Harris will do just fine, right? Which is smart. They don't want to say that she's going to completely bomb, because if you set the expectations as she's going to die on stage like her predecessor in the campaign, then if she doesn't die on stage, she's now surpassed the expectations. Trump campaign advisor Chris LaCivita told House Republican lawmakers and senior staff they are anticipating a fine performance from Vice President Harris during Tuesday's debate. According to Axios, Republicans are preparing for a much different dynamic than the first debate, when President Biden's disastrous performance eventually forced him to drop out of the race. Harris has been riding a wave of enthusiasm since stepping in as the nominee. LaCivita noted Harris has less recent live interview or debate experience than Trump. And again, they are playing up the expectations of Harris, which makes sense. Meanwhile, Democrats are simultaneously attempting to play down the expectations of Harris. So Pete Buttigieg, who again is famous for being a crappy Secretary of Transportation, and also which is really important. He says that she's going to have superhuman focus and discipline. Is that what it's going to take? Superhuman? She's going to be like Wonder Woman. She's going to fly in her invisible jet, and then she is going to have like laser eyes in the debate. Talk about lowering expectations here. All right.
It says 28% of likely voters said they still need to learn more about Harris. Only 9% say that about Trump. What does she need to do at the debate to fill in those blanks?
She is a very focused and disciplined leader, but it will take almost superhuman focus and discipline to deal with Donald Trump in a debate. It's no ordinary proposition. Not because Donald Trump is a master of explaining policy ideas and how they're going to make people better off. It's because he's a master of taking any form or format that is on television and turning it into a show that is all about him.
But the good news, says Pete Buttigieg, is that she is amazing at getting to the heart of the issue. I'm not sure I've ever heard a more untrue statement than that about Kamala Harris. That she's great at getting to the heart of the issue. What now? What now? If there were an issue on the table and it had a heart, she would be operating on the kidneys. She has never come close to the heart of an issue. Every time she's asked about an issue, she starts rambling like a fifth grader who didn't read the book. Great at getting to the heart of the issue. The importance of Social Security is that time passes. Good God. Here is Pete Buttigieg trying to whip everybody into a lather over Kamala Harris's excellent rhetorical ingenuity.
You just mentioned that you were debating her and that you learned from that. What did you learn? What should we expect that you experienced as somebody who was jousting with her?
Well, I think about intellect and focus. She's somebody who is extremely smart about getting to the core of an issue. That's what made her so effective as a DA, as a prosecutor, then as Attorney General, and of course as Vice President. And one of the things I remember from those debate preparations when I was involved supporting her team 4 years ago was anytime some issue area or topic came up, we were kicking around statistics, ideas, arguments. She'd always take it back to the question of, okay, how is this going to affect somebody at home? And I think that's especially important right now with some of the issues at stake right now.
Yes, she is a person of the people who is excellent at getting to the heart of an issue. If you are a small baby who's dropped on your head, that's true. Wow, 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 wow. In a moment, we're going to get to Hillary Clinton's advice for debating Donald Trump, which I'm not sure why you would take that advice since he clocked her. She lost to him. All right. Get to that in just 1 second. First, this Friday, get ready to gasp, laugh, and cringe as the Daily Wire's first ever theatrical release, Am I Racist?, hits theaters nationwide. The movie trailer and clips have already made liberals lose their minds. The bad news for our friends on the left is you haven't seen anything yet. Am I Racist? Has been selling out theaters across the country for weeks. On Friday, you'll finally get to see what the buzz is all about. Bring your family, friends, even those skeptical coworkers. If your local theater wasn't showing it last time you checked, amiracist.com. Look again. Hundreds of screens have been added in the last 48 hours. Head on over to amiracist.com now for tickets and showtimes. Do not miss Am I Racist in theaters nationwide this Friday. Well, meanwhile, good news for Kamala Harris. She has an advisor in this debate, and it's Hillary Clinton. Yes, if ever you wondered about advice from a person who lost a national election to Donald Trump, now you have it. According to Reed Epstein, reporting for the New York Times, Hillary Clinton has as much experience as any Democrat debating Donald J. Trump, which is like saying that the Washington Generals have more experience playing the Harlem Globetrotters than any team on the earth. That's true, but I'm not sure it's saying what you think it's saying. Ms. Clinton called to discuss her old debate coach, Karen Dunn, who is helping out Vice President Kamala Harris this time around. She says the consensus was I won all 3 debates and I was well prepared. Was that the consensus, though? Was it? She says it was the first debate when Trump literally ridiculed me for preparing. This was not something we had thought about beforehand because who thought we could be ridiculed for preparing for a presidential debate in front of 85 or 90 million people? So basically I said, yeah, I did prepare. And, I'll tell you something else I prepared for. I prepared to be president because I had the confidence. I knew the material. I felt comfortable. I also knew I had to brush Trump back and not let him be the center of attention all the time. And then Hillary says, Kamala has proved to be a good debater, both in her races in California and in her debate with Mike Pence. So I think she needs to be prepared enough. She feels really comfortable going on both offense and defense against Trump because there's a lot to cover with him. Have you talked with Harris about the debate? She's asked. Quote, he doesn't answer the questions. He doesn't come with any specifics. It appears from the reporting he's going to go with a scorched earth approach and will just try to tear her down, which is his usual go-to strategy. You have to go back at him about his really terrible record as president, the kinds of things he had said he wants to do next this time around, his association with Project 2025. Good luck with all that. Seriously, good luck. Because it turns out more people liked his presidency than like her vice presidency. That is not going to work. If she starts ripping on his record as president, and she's like, yeah, you lost so many jobs when you're a president, you can say, well, that was COVID, and I noticed that you have the worst economic recovery in modern history given your 40-year highs in inflation and the fact that a vast majority of the American people believe your economy is poor. More Americans trust me on the economy by every available poll, and there's a reason for that. Like this is a buzzsaw. The buzzsaw is her record. It's not even him. It's her record. If he can hold her accountable to her record, it's a major, major problem. Hillary says, I talked with Kamala about a number of things. She should just not be baited. She should bait him. He can be rattled. He doesn't know how to respond to substantive, direct attacks. I think that from her prosecutorial background, I think that's what she will be equipped to do. I mean, when I said on stage he was a Russian puppet and he just sputtered on stage, I think that's an example of how you get out a fact about him that really unnerves him. That wasn't even a fact. It wasn't even a fact. She's now saying you should just lie about him, which is typical Hillary Clinton. You know, it was a great moment for Hillary Clinton when she lied and said that he was Vladimir Putin's puppet. Weird, because he wasn't. But she thinks that was a big triumph for her. And the fact that Democrats have to go to the well by trying to treat Hillary Clinton as some sort of great voice on all of this is truly insane. I'll tell you what Trump should smack Kamala Harris over. He should smack Kamala Harris over the Afghanistan withdrawal, given the fact that this week marks pretty much the end of the Afghan withdrawal. And she was the last person in the room. She was the last person in the room. And if she tries to come back at him with, well, you broke the rules at Arlington National Cemetery, he should say, I was invited there by the families. You didn't show up. Those troops are dead because of you. It'll be a disaster in the waiting for her. According to Politico, the House Foreign Affairs Committee's Republican chair has now issued a scathing new report outlining what he views as the Biden administration's failures on Afghanistan and playing up VP Kamala Harris's role in the chaotic 2021 U.S. withdrawal from the country. Now, once again, this is a Republican pounce story, right? She says that she was the last person in the room. She was integrally involved in the Afghanistan pullout. If you mention it, it's you pouncing. That's how this stupidity works. The report stresses the Biden-Harris administration prioritized the optics of the withdrawal over the security of U.S. personnel on the ground, and that it misled and in some instances directly lied to the American people at every stage of the withdrawal. That, of course, is 100% true. That is absolutely true. According to the report, Vice President Kamala Harris was the last person in the room when President Biden made the decision to withdraw all U.S. forces from Afghanistan, a fact she boasted about shortly after Biden issued his go-to-zero order. Despite warnings against withdrawing by senior leaders, Vice President Harris's aide disclosed that the VP strongly supported President Biden's decision. President Biden's former chief of staff, Ron Klain, affirmed Vice President Harris was entrenched in the president's Afghanistan policy. The report notes, when the evacuation took place in August 2021, Harris was on a trip to Singapore and Vietnam, where she pledged the administration would continue to protect Afghan women and children. Her promise has clearly not been fulfilled. In fact, it is now illegal for Afghan girls to go to school beyond very, very young ages now. And they're all being stuffed into black bags and basements, basically. So yes, Donald Trump should hold her accountable on all of that. I would imagine that he would. Meanwhile, President Trump was out on the campaign trail, and he says, you know, she has been lying for years about the mental acuity of the President of the United States. She should have used the 25th Amendment on him long ago, considering he's no longer capable of serving in his office. So if she won't use the 25th Amendment, perhaps we should amend the 25th Amendment to allow for the impeachment of the vice president who allows for an incompetent president to continue on in his job. Here was Trump over the weekend.
Finally, I will support modifying the 25th Amendment to make clear that if a vice president lies or engages in a conspiracy to cover up the incapacity of the president of the United States, if you do that with a cover-up of the President of the United States, it's grounds for impeachment immediately and removal from office, because that's what they did.
Now, President Trump did get an excellent bit of news at the very end of last week. It happened on Friday afternoon. The judge in the New York hush money case, Judge Merchan, he delayed the sentencing until after the election. It's now happening late November, which means it could be completely obviated if Trump wins the election. If Trump wins the election, then presumably it would be a complete inability to fulfill his presidential duties if he were in Sing Sing. It would mean they basically could not sentence him to anything remotely like jail time. So that is a big win for Trump, because as much as people on the right think that Trump being sentenced in the middle of the election cycle would redound to his benefit, it actually wouldn't. If you were sentenced to jail time in the middle of the election cycle, a lot of people would refocus in on Trump's supposed criminality. And already the Republican willingness to go out and vote for Trump is really, really high. It's not getting any higher from here. So that is a very good piece of news for President Trump. Meanwhile, there are certain entrenched problems with the Republican Party that do need to be alleviated over time. One of those is a major problem with the various state parties. The Arizona State Republican Party has had major problems for a long time now. Remember, Arizona used to be a state with 2 Republican senators and a Republican governor, and now has 2 Democratic senators and a Democratic governor. The state party is not run well. That is why Kari Lake, the Republican nominee who lost her gubernatorial race to wet dish rag Katie Hobbs, is now running significantly behind in her Senate race. It's not just Arizona where the Republicans have problems. They also have a problem in Michigan. According to the Wall Street Journal, Brian Pennebaker was pumping iron in his garage late last month when he found out Donald Trump had just dropped by a nearby Macomb County campaign office to share pizza with volunteers. He was furious no one had invited him. Pennebaker, who founded a 1,400-member group called Auto Workers for Trump and had joined the former president on stage at a recent Grand Rapids rally, already felt like some local campaign leaders were botching the ground-level operations in Detroit's outskirts by alienating allies like him. So he tossed 100 Trump signs into his Ford Explorer, drove to Trump's campaign office in the county, and gave them back, announcing he would no longer work with the office. He then picked up a black marker to scribble out his signature on an elephant statue in the office. Local police, he recalled, still on hand after Trump's visit, escorted him from the premises. The GOP effort to boost turnout in Macomb County has been slow to gear up and beset by infighting. Some local party leaders are refusing to follow the Trump campaign's ground strategy, which relies on an app to identify persuadable voters, pledging to instead use their own approach to decide which homes to visit. Loyal Trump foot soldiers, the local leaders complained, couldn't even start knocking on doors in August because the campaign hadn't yet replaced printed material pegged to a rematch against President Biden. Mark Fortin, chairman of the Macomb County Republican Party, said people should know what's going on here. Fortin warned Trump supporters about flaws in the campaign's ground game, grousing about being allotted just 250 signs to distribute. Michigan's Republican Party, according to the Wall Street Journal, has been torn by infighting for more than a year as Chamber of Commerce Republicans gave way to populists who are deeply skeptical of elites and institutions of power. Republicans removed the state party's chairwoman earlier this year for mismanaging organization finances and replaced that person with somebody who's more Trumpy in affect. Macomb is one of 20 counties in battleground states Trump has identified as vital to retaking the presidency. And again, a lot of this, people are ignoring kind of the nuts and bolts of how to run a ground game here. You can only hope that the Trump campaign has a really solid ground game in coordination with groups like TPUSA and other groups that they are working with, because in the end, it's going to be about getting out the vote. Polling doesn't mean anything because polling in the end is reliant on the people who are in the poll to actually go to the polling place and vote. The campaign's approach is part of a new ground game called, says the Wall Street Journal, it's called Trump Force 47, which puts an emphasis on efficiency in the face of an extensive Democratic field operation. The Trump campaign said there are more than 24 Trump Force 47 offices in the state. Harris has opened 52 offices in Michigan. The campaign said those offices are working closely with the Democratic Party on the ground, and volunteers have been knocking on doors for months. And this is a big problem. Michigan's Republican Party has been in turmoil for more than a year. In January, Christina Caramo was replaced as party chair by Pete Hoekstra, a longtime congressman and former Trump administration ambassador to the Netherlands. Caramo had mismanaged the party's finances and was widely derided for saying demonic forces were controlling political opponents. The fight left the party with less money to spend on organizing and lingering ill will among Caramo's supporters. So again, just this sort of chaos that's been ushered in by the mismanagement at the top levels of the Republican Party continues to have downstream effects. So keep an eye on the ground game. All right, you guys, coming up, remember that time that Donald Trump's an authoritarian? Well, the left is sounding pretty authoritarian about their attempts to, quote unquote, stop the authoritarian. If you're not a member, become a member, use code Shapiro, check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gon' say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification.
What you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you in this field.
Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of
white
folks,
white
trash, white supremacy, white woman, white boy.
Is there a black person around here?
There's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
They gon' say I'm racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Matt.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gon' say you racist.
Buy your tickets now. In theaters September 13th. Rated PG-13.